It's time for the factory to grow. Take it away, Franqly.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Factorio Land. I'm joined with my couch here, XenoCyber, AntiElitz, and Thue. I'll let them introduce themselves real quick.
Hi, my name is XenoCyber. I've been playing Factorio for a number of years and speedrunning it and commentating a little bit. Anti?
Hey, I'm AntiElitz. I'm the founder of the community of Factorio speedruns. I founded like 6 years ago, and currently I'm the world record holder in default settings.
Hi, I'm Thue. I've been playing speedrunning for a long time, Factorio. I've mostly been doing multiplayer.
All right, so we'll start here shortly. Just explaining this is any percent. The goal is to launch a rocket as fast as possible. I won't be doing a lot of talking during the run. It takes a lot of focus, so I'm letting Xeno do the majority of the commentary today. All right, we're starting in 3, 2, 1.
Okay, so
Good luck.
Good luck
Thank you.
and have fun. So, Factorio is a game about automation. It is an open world game where you start by mining ore by hand and you win, quote unquote, by launching a rocket into space. It feels like a survival game at first, but quickly the factory must grow and you must automate things. It also takes a lot of elements from city building games like Anno, but has different levels of complexity and depth. In Factorio, you need to mine raw resources, process them up to different tech levels. But unlike Anno, you need to design the factory that does all this as well. You don't have workers, you are the only worker until later in the game where you get bots, but we'll get to that later. But in this speed run, we're looking at the first phase, which is the burner stage. Ore is collected manually and they'll be put into burner furnaces to be smelted into plates.
Really nice cold drops from the first few rocks here.
Nice.
Good start.
This is actually a very untypical part of the game, as this is a part where you don't automate anything in a game where there's basically automation, right? So it's a bit painful to get through there, but it's necessary for that exponential growth you need in the opening, right?
Yep. Talking about exponential growth, you're seeing him smelt iron ore into iron plates. He will, this takes about 3.2 seconds per plate. He will need over 500,000 plates by the end of the game, and he will need another 350,000 copper plates, which is another basic resource, before we end everything.
Those of you first time seeing this game, I know it's kind of a lot going on and it's hard to understand everything. So just try to, Xeno's going to explain the basics of the game.
Yeah. So, like we said, right now we're in a slower part of the game. It's basically manually mining, trying to ramp up. This is the burner stage. It's the first of 6 stages. I'll just go through the stages quickly. There's the burner stage, the early automation. We have the mall. We have towards bots, what we call the mix build, and the late game. When we get to them, we'll explain them more in depth. But really what you want to know here is like in the burner stage, it's all manual building, just getting some basic resources to expand the factory. A lot of manual stuff is happening here. Yeah. NT.
So we're seeing the set seat peaceful category of Factorio here, right? Can you give us a small overview about the rules here, Xeno?
Yes. So the rules of this category are you can predefine the seed. So we'll talk about that in a bit. Anthony will talk about how we found the seed or this seed. But you can pre-do the seed. You can plan out your whole base before you play the map because the map does not change. It's a peaceful category. So in Factorio, there are aliens that come and attack you as you generate pollution. In this category, they are not on. And there are a lot of the settings here were tweaked to make things ore patches much bigger and nicer, and to make it easier and faster to build and launch a rocket. So these are very favorable settings.
Short on stone, I did not notice, so I have to kind of get some extra stone here.
So, Anti, do you want to talk? There's not much RNG in Factorio. Do you want to talk about like where there is RNG? It's really only in the beginning, but can you talk about it a little bit?
Absolutely. There's barely any RNG in any percent, which is so nice because it makes the run very consistent and you can really focus about the execution, your skill. There's not much luck involved. The only part where you have in the beginning luck here is then you mine the rocks and the core rocks, or specifically the core rocks. They will give you like a random amount of coal and stone between 25 and 50. And of course, you always want to aim for those 50 pieces because that will make you grow much quicker in the opening. And a lot of runs die in the first 2 minutes or 3 minutes where you get those core rocks and you just see you don't get enough drops from that. But that's usually not a problem because, as I said, it's in the very first 2 minutes of like a 1.5 hour run. So I think most of us are completely fine with that little bit of RNG and resetting there. When you play with aliens, of course, in the categories, there's a ton of RNG, and that's kind of like a lot of opposite what we have in any percent.
Yes, in any percent, we try to do all the RNG before the run. That's in finding the maps and stuff. And there's a whole tool that was developed by Zulan that went through billions of maps and trying to find ones that are favorable to.
Actually, he went through all the maps, right?
Oh,
we
that's
have
true.
Like 4 billion maps in total, but like every second is about like a duplicate. So actually, the tool analyzed 2 billion maps and sorted them a bit out so we can find the best map we can think of. But actually, even though we have used all those tools and pulled out the very best maps, a lot of top runners in the past still use different maps, and it changes from time to time what is the best map, because it is so much not very certain what is the best map and how it looks like and what is the best order. It's such a complex game that the things you want to be good on the map change within the months pretty consistently.
And it also changes as new techniques are discovered that save a little bit of time. They could also require map changes.
It's important to note that this is not my design. This is a design by Nephrims. I just use his design.
Yes.
It doesn't really matter. I mean, this is a speedrun. Tell
Sure.
me how many world record holders in other games have actually routed their path in the platformers themselves, right? It's all about the execution.
Yeah, so up until now, Franqly has basically built some manual stuff. He just finished a little power plant and he's starting to automate. In Factorio, you see we have belts. Belts are your way to move things between different buildings. And he also has some automated electrical miners, which will mine the ores and put the raw ore on the belt. Another key thing in Factorio are those inserters. Inserters are the main way that you take something from a belt or from a building and put it into a different building. These are, basic things for a factory, and we'll be building a lot of those to automate things.
So there's like often players ask me, why do people in Thue start automating with inserters and belts so late? And the reason for that is, as long as your resource production is so low that you cannot place stuff faster than you actually have resources for it, you will not gain any benefit from automation. You rather go away with the cheap one. But now we're in the stage we actually have an economy and an income of iron plates and copper plates that we can actually afford doing some automation, because otherwise we could not keep up with the stuff anymore. So always, if you ask yourself, why is a certain thing like green science or red science happening so late, when it could have been done way earlier, it is because we delayed on purpose to be as late as possible and use the resources instead to grow even more.
So you mentioned red and green science, Santi. Let's talk about what the sciences are. So we know the goal of Factorio is to launch a rocket, but before you can launch a rocket, you need to research all the technologies that go into the rocket. There are a number of sciences. We start with red and green, and then we go to blue, purple, and then yellow science. And once we get those, and that allows us to research all the things we need for the rocket. There's another science, gray science or black science. We don't really use it in this any percent speed run. That's military, and that's usually for fighting biters. What are the names? Can you explain a little bit of the sciences?
Sure, maybe we should start with a very basic principle what we're actually doing here, right?
Okay.
We could go to the process how you actually get one single piece of green science, right? So I would say we start with the smelting, right? Which frankly is already setting up right now. We have miners on iron, which put iron ore on one side of the belt, and coal miners, which put coal on the other side of the belt. Then we have furnaces, they take the iron ore and the coal, both of that, and smelt it into iron plates. And the next thing that we're gonna see is that Franqly is gonna put those iron plates on a belt and process them further until it processes into green science. And for green science, you need to process iron plates and copper plates, make green chips with them, and with the green chips and the iron, you can create aerials, and with the 3 ingredients you can finally create inserters and belts, and with inserters and belts you can create green science. So you see how many steps it is that we have actually to go through here, and that is only the second science of the game, right? And there's a 6 total, so stuff is only getting more complicated from here on.
Yep, and we're firmly out of the burner stage now when we're into the early automation stage.
It's important to note I still rely on the burners for resources throughout, but they become less and less important as we go.
Yes, they do. The burners are used as kind of your extra iron, and you're still calculated it, but it's kind of your personal iron, usually, in your runs.
So what is very special about the speedrun here is that people are not really so much limited on their movement speed like they are in other games, right? Factorio is a lot about how fast can you move your mouse and how precise can you put down entities, and the quicker you can do that, the better your final time will be. And that leads to a game that has extremely low downtime. There's no cutscenes, there's no breaks in between, there's nothing you can take a break and relax. It's just 1.5 hour of pure 100% power, right?
That's why it's very hard for me to try to commentate this.
Yep, and also, to just expand on that, the mistakes and the things that you do in the beginning can affect your final time completely, because it all builds on everything builds on another part of it. So, Anti was talking about the RNG of the rocks. That can affect the final time because it affects how fast you grow. And this is all about automation and growing as fast as you can to get to everything in the end with the rocket as fast as you can.
Yeah, Factorio is a lot different compared to other speedruns because there's no really classical segments, right? And you're playing Celeste or Super Mario, you get into a new screen, a new level, and basically whatever you did before doesn't really matter. You can keep going with your muscle memory up from there, and you kind of reset to that moment where you enter the screen, and nothing that you did before really influences what happens after. But in Factorio, everything you do from the very beginning influences what happens in the end. And that's also why it is so insanely complicated to route Factorio correctly. And we are still not sure what is the best route. It's changing so often, and that means the category times also still improve a lot. I mean, just in the past 6 months, I think the any percent time decreased by over 10 minutes, which is insane. And that is not because players have gotten only mechanically much better, of course that they also got, but also new techniques have been found, new routes have been found, and the game is a bit different again. It's so complex, you don't know what is the best order, and it's so hard to determine that.
Yeah, that's true. And then also the game has changed. The game, we've been speedrunning this game even before it was fully released. It was when it was in beta. But the game has always been super solid and evolving. Anti, you broke 2 hours in version 0.14. That was before the 1.0.
0.12 even, yeah.
Oh,
I think
12.
that was 6 years ago, right?
Yeah, and that that was, and that was so long ago. But then after that, after the 0.16 release with the overhaul of science, things got much slower. But over time, we found new routes, new adaptations, new ideas, and Franqly is now doing this in about an hour and a half.
Yeah. So what we see Franqly doing here right now is still setting up the Iron Lane. The very first part of this run is not about working towards a final rocket, right? Which you need to finish the game. It's not even about like working towards the sciences. Basically what you do in the early game is just you build more to build more. You build up your infrastructure. All the things that you need that is placed here for the automation, the furnaces, the belts, the inserters, the assemblers, the science labs, they all take resources, and we try to build it up as quickly as possible, and the more we invest into our infrastructure, the more we can grow after that. And that's why you only see Franqly like doing more iron, more copper, all over that again, but barely doing any processing of that because it's not really needed. We consume the stuff so quickly that we don't need science or anything like that right now. We only need to focus on growing. But soon we're gonna see the first real science build coming up because we're approaching now kind of the pace or the part of the game where we actually produce so many things that it is enough to keep up with us placing and with us like building more. And that's the right point to actually do some stuff like science which progresses towards the final time of the game, right? Or which really like progresses towards the end goals of the game.
Yeah, so I did start a little bit of science there up at the top. Those 3 assemblers doing red science, but that's pales in comparison to the science that we need in the game, so that will be scaled up pretty quickly.
And
that's just the absolute bare minimum, but you need to unlock some technology which enables you to grow even faster, right?
Yep, and that's exactly what I was going to say. It's the red science that he has going is just to give him more tools to grow. It's really not towards the goal, even though it is because it's in the path. But he really wants it now because he wants it to be able to grow and build more efficient layouts, like the underground belts, like the long inserters or the fast inserters that he already has. So they're inserters and belts come in different colors, and the different colors are different speeds. Or in the inserter world, there also can be long hand inserters, which go a little longer than the short ones.
I did not pick up my belt, and that was unfortunate.
Maybe we should we actually pass the assemblers, but I think we didn't speak about the assemblers, so once we get there again, we can talk you. You see those little things that have the green chips and the copper wires on the head? These are assemblers, and they are basically the ultimate unit in Factorio to automate stuff, right? Everything that you can handcraft and just go to inventory and click something to build. Those boxes, they can automate for you. For example, like there's like the gear wheel assembler you see here on the very left and the green chip assemblers. They will craft green chips all the time. They take the iron plates and convert it into gear wheels, or they take iron plates and copper wires and will put that into green chips. And that's how you automate the crafting of stuff now, which is really getting off there now, and will help you to be faster and faster and exponentially grow.
Yep.
Even more.
Exactly. And now we're seeing the starts of a mini mall, and this is again, instead of having to craft all these things that you need so many of during the game, you just have them. You just automate it so they are automatically crafted, and then Franqly can just come and pick them up when he needs them.
Just want to take a short break for donations.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to need to automate pinning all these donations that are coming in. We've got $1,000 from Blue Cheetah that says the factory must grow. We've got $50 from Solum that says the factory must grow. We've got Paternum5 with $25 that says the factory must grow. We've got $1,000 from Emlun that says, in loving memory of the steel axe, the donation total must grow. So much love coming in for y'all.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome.
Anti, you got to explain what the steel axe is.
Oh, I do?
Yes, you have
So
to.
in the very, very early game, days of Factorio speedrunning, I was really trying to get and take the absolute minimum route towards the rocket. And there is a technology that is called Steel Axe, and it will make you mine faster, which means basically it makes you pick up entities quicker. And well, as a new runner I really thought, well, if you don't do any mistakes, you don't have to pick up any things, right? And then you're not gonna need the Steel Axe technology, because, I mean, it would just be a waste of science, right? Because you just don't do mistakes. And as I kept doing mistakes in this long run over and over again, I shot converted to the Team Steel Axe, which means get the Steel Axe research to get that additional mining speed and save on those mistakes you do. And so
Because mistakes are gonna happen.
Team Steel Axe was created, and eventually I had to give in, and actually, yeah, it's worth to get the Steel Axe. Not only for the mistakes, but also for the additional wood pulls you pick up these days. It will make you mine them faster, and you actually need a lot of wood in this run, which you cannot automate for the cheap power pulls we use completely in this run now.
Yeah, that's a good point. If any of you have played Factorio, you've probably seen, you know, more advanced buildings or more advanced power poles or more advanced belts. A lot of the times in the speed run, we don't use those advanced things because they cost more to make, they cost research to unlock. So unless we have them already, we're not going to try them, and we're going to usually focus on building bigger versus building more advanced on some of these things. You know, we're only using the assembler 1s. We'll go to assembler 2s later, but we're not going to go to assembler 3s. There is no red belt or very little red belt in this run, and you know, you're not going to see a lot of those kind of advanced buildings that make things, you know, when you build when you're playing for fun, you might really go into. Yeah, that's about that. NT.
One of the things you will actually find that is more costly than it need to be is an assembler that is fed by 2 red inserters just next to each other, even though we could use like a red one and a yellow one. I will show you when we get there at that point, but sometimes it's worth to get like the more costly part.
There.
Actually be faster with the placement, because we do so much manual placement here.
Yeah, it saves the switching between the 2 types of inserters, and if you do enough of those, you have to switch a lot, so you can just place 2 red ones instead of having to switch it between a red and a yellow.
So we finally reached the part where we have our final size of the red and green build, or I think you still have to upgrade them, but they're out there. So only now we have the first 2 science packs unlocked, even though technically you could have done it much earlier, right? It was just not worth, because the progress on the research tree is not required yet. What is really required is more war resources so we can grow faster. And one way to do that right now is also to create steel furnaces, which have twice the smelting speed of a normal furnace. So what we see now is Franqly setting up a steel smelter, which is an iron plate that is smelted again into a steel plate. And with that steel and some stone bricks, we can actually get the steel furnaces, which are twice as fast as that. And with that, we can just upgrade the furnace we already have and makes the infrastructure we already have even more efficient. So that's one of the things where we actually use the tier 2 building, even though it is more costly, but it's not that much more costly that it would really matter, and we just take the time instead. So yeah, it's not clear. Sometimes you want to take the more costly stuff because it's faster, and sometimes it's just a waste of resources, and what is worth and what is not, it changes.
Yeah, and it
really does.
And it changes based on the design as well. You know, there's a lot of thought before the run about the designs and what is the right what is the right materials to use. You know, why is he using blue inserters here, which are faster than yellow inserters versus, you know, why other places he's using yellow. It's all been a lot of thought out and a lot of muscle memory to remember where to place and what.
Lots of muscle memory.
As this is any percent also, you know, every time he's playing, he's putting these miners in the exact same pixel location as before. You know, everything is designed to be placed in one spot. And if he's off by one square, it's going to be a problem later.
Yeah, sometimes it doesn't matter, but most of the time, yeah, it matters quite a bit.
Yes, that's true. There are times when it doesn't matter if it's on the outskirts, but things are kept compact because that's less to walk.
Oops, I forgot to cue the rest of the science.
Yeah, and usually it matters that you really place everything correctly. For example, if Franqly would just miss one of those inserters, he just places here, and he would not notice it right away that it's placed wrong, and it wouldn't smelt more stone bricks. Your whole steel furnace production will slow down, and at the very end of the run, you will not have enough steel furnaces to beat your final time.
To pick up
So
stone too.
this may look like a tiny mistake, and you don't notice this, but this tiny mistake you will notice like 1 hour later and make your run die. So this can be very difficult because the delay between making a mistake and noticing it and getting punished for it is extremely high. You could be in a run that has been dead for like half an hour without noticing it because you did one single mistake.
Yeah, so what we allow here is for Twitch chat to talk to the runner. Chat will often find mistakes that the runner misses.
Yes, so that's true, and the reason that it really happens is because as a runner, you're building one thing and you're trying to think of what the next step is. So what you're building, you're not even thinking about it. You're thinking about a step or two in advance because you need to prepare the things for that next step, and you're building by muscle memory. So if you mistake, if there's a little mistake, your chat really helps finding it.
Just want to point out right now, this is a pretty good run because I didn't have enough iron to make all of my stuff right now, which only happens if the run is pretty good at this point. So that's something.
Beat.
You know,
Really nice.
or I just didn't.
And we're
Mind
expanding.
if I pop in for some donations?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure.
All right, we've got $10 from PearBear321. They say, Factorio is an okay game. I only have 600 hours in it. Also, the donations must grow. And then I did the actual calculations on this one. Azure Blade gives $54.12, says $1 for each 24 hours this addictive substance has gifted me. The factory must grow. That totals to about 1,298.88 hours.
Ooh, I would go broke if I gave her for every hour I play.
Don't be disappointed if you have less than 1,000 hours. You still can get like an intermediate player even though you are a beginner right now in Factorio.
I wonder, Auntie, how many hours do you have playing this game?
Oh, I've been playing this game for 6 years, right? So I think I'm approaching the 6,000 hours.
Wow. I got about 2,400.
Yeah. Unfortunately,
So
I play it for fun and for speedrunning, and I have way too many hours. You don't want to. I can't. More than Auntie, unfortunately. I wonder if I think I have like 8,000 to 10,000 hours.
I'm in
yeah,
there.
it takes a real long time to master Factorio. It's an insane time sink.
And go
I'm
ahead.
embarrassed to say I only have 143 hours, so I am small potatoes.
It's the beauty of it is that you can, in Factorio, you can optimize for whatever you're doing. If you're doing a speed run, you can optimize things for the speed run, the type of run, or if you're playing for fun, you can optimize for mega bases or any other thing, any other of the mods that are on this game. This game has a huge modding potential and a huge modding community, and they create amazing mods that keep the same basic feel. You got to build a factory, but because they change some key elements, the design is completely different. So you have to, you go through the puzzle of figuring out what's the best for each thing. And even when we speedrun, we go with that design. We want to, what is the best for making it faster? What is the best for making it faster for any percentage versus default settings, which has aliens and stuff like that, or any other game modes that we play.
Yeah, the replayability of this game is so insane because of the different parts that you can actually improve on. You can optimize this game in so many levels, right? We are like here going for the best time, but you can also make a base which is like as compact as possible, or you try to build as processing power intense as possible, as little possible, so you can really build a big base without the game starting to lag. Or you can
Build the
what
most
else was
science. The most science.
the most science, yeah. So it's not clear what is the best build. There's not one single solution to anything because there's always one solution to each of the problems. If you want to go fast, what you want to optimize for is going to be very different from what you're gonna take if you want to build cheap. And if you want to improve your build towards efficiency, you're gonna come up with another solution again. And that's insane stuff. Like there's not one solution. There's just all solution.
Yes.
Can I pop in with another
Maybe we have
donation?
done time.
Yeah, keep going more donations. Go more donations. Go.
Great, we've got donators flexing with their hours here. So we've got Ubu with $157.54. They say here are 10 cents per hour played on my most played game. Really love this game. The donations and the factory must grow. So that's 1,575 hours. That's pretty good. And then I had a Factorio is the best. I spent probably 70 hours before I considered myself done with the tutorial. Game is a time machine. That's from Dustin D with $25. Yeah, chat, feel free to flex on everybody with your hours played and your donations here.
Yeah, we the devs are amazing. By the way, a big shout out goes to the devs. The devs for this game are amazing. We've had releases come out on Friday night, and then after the release comes out Friday night, a bug fix comes out the same, even later on Friday night, because people downloaded it, played it, and reported the bug, and they didn't want people to wait until Monday for the bug fix. So the devs are really amazing, and big shout out to them.
Absolutely, the game has always been stable in the early access as well. I mean, this game has been like in early access for 8 years or something like that, I think. And every single second of that, the game played more stable than the last 10 EA releases, I would say. So, really big shout out to them.
Knocking
The
on
reason for this run to be glitchless, by the way, is not that we don't want to use glitches and we don't find them. It's just every time we find a glitch, it's like fix the next day. So.
It's very frustrating.
This is actually not glitchless. It's just, well, we're forced to be glitchless, right? The game is just like maintained so greatly.
Yes, there were some amazing glitches in the early days. There were ways that you could limit the world and get water from the edges of the world, fixed. Void extra oil in engines, fixed or changed. So there's a lot of these things glitches that we've used in the past that are gone these days, to our sadness. We keep trying to find new ones, even though we know they're gonna get fixed pretty quickly. We were talked about in the beginning about the 6 stages of the speed run. We went through the burner stage, early automation, mall. So now we're firmly into the mall stage and getting closer towards bots. Bots will help the factory grow much faster because you get helpers that can help build things for you. But we'll talk about them.
You can automate the progress of automation. That's the next level, right? Yeah, I agree. That's the next step coming up. Right, what you see right now is a very special part of the run, maybe because you will not grow exponentially at this part anymore. We've gotten to the point where we have steel furnaces and we upgraded our production a lot. And now we have so much production that we are too slow to consume it all, basically. We just can't put down stuff as fast as possible, right? And that's kind of like linear growth we have right now. but that growth is now going towards bots, which will help you like to go to the exponential growing phase again. So what's happening right now, even though we have linear progress, the base, we call it like the restock area, the mall, most people say, they will still like stock up on assemblers and inserters and build all the stuff you're gonna need once you get construction bots, which allows you to blueprint stuff and copy it, and the bots will basically build stuff for you then. And everything that you buffer up right now in the stage is gonna be used there extremely quickly, and you're gonna grow like insanely after that.
Yes, and
There's a reason why reaching bots is kind of like half of the game, even though I don't know what is the size of the factory, like maybe like a fourth or whatever it is gonna be in the end. It's only a fraction.
yes, and I want to also very important to note, there in any percent, you are not allowed to import any blueprints. The rules those are the rules. So you can't get blueprints from outside the game. If you want to use blueprints, and frankly we'll be using them in a bit, you have to create the layout in the game that you're playing. So the other thing that all this factory has been set up is that so there are parts of it that can be useful and reused later when he gets to bots to grow much faster and have them do all the work. But he has to create the blueprints beforehand. That's what he's been doing at the same time as growing his factory. Some more donations.
Yeah, absolutely. I was seeing some discussion in the chat saying, well, Factorio wasn't on the Steam sale. Pimecone's doing my job here by telling everyone with their $30 donation, Factorio never goes on sale, but it's worth every one of its $30. If you like building an optimization, give the free demo a shot.
Yes, and people have said that the demo, they've spent 70 hours on the demo, which is free. Actually, Factorio, because of the increased content, it actually has gone up in price. And the devs will never have it go on sale. That's true.
I mean, actually, I have to disagree. Factorio is always on sale because it's only $30 for a game that is insane. Technically, this should be like a $60 game, right? And
that's true.
If it were like on sale for 50%, then you would be happy about it. But it's always on sale, guys. Get it.
As a math guy, the cost per hour is minuscule when you really get into it.
Yes. That is the better way of looking at it. I agree with Anti. Yeah, frankly.
Okay.
I've got a good hours played flex here from Fiend X Jocks. They give $1,200, which says 10 cents an hour played. Sure, we can do that. So that is what, 12,000 hours?
Nice.
Yeah, you should be a speedrunner.
Yeah.
Yeah, join the group.
Join us. Yeah, maybe we can speak a bit about the Factorio speedrunning history, right? As it has been like, even though the game has only been released last year, the Factorio speedrunning community has already been active for like 6 years, and I kind of started speedrunning Factorio all alone for basically some years until other people start pick it up. And that is because I watched like Cheese doing his Super Mario speedruns like 6 years ago. Big shout out to him. And I was so much impressed by that I thought, yeah, Factorio is such an amazing game, it also deserves some love in terms of a speedrun, and I will make one run of it, and just one, alright? I only want to speedrun one single game. And then I did so, and I started speedrunning it, and I got addicted. So I played it, I speedrun it again the next week, and again and again and again. And other people also saw me streaming it and found it very interesting as well, and then they started picking up and use the game yourself. And it's very impressive because at this point, 6 years later, we are like over 100 runners, just like over 100 80% submissions from different people in the last year. And that means if you really have a game that you love and you take a look at the leaderboards and you don't see anyone speedrunning it, you can be the first one, and it can grow into something huge.
Yes, I want to comment on that, but before that, I wanted to point out Franqly has entered into the oil stage. He got some crude oil and he is processing it. This is
I thought I was missing something.
in the game. It's a decent part of the game. Oh, you're missing the output. Yep. This is a different type of resource management than up until now. So it's harder. It's a harder step to go past if you're playing it for the first time and figuring out how to do all the different builds and how to make things work. So if you get stuck on it, don't feel bad. But you're progressing and you need it, obviously.
I want to comment on why we do that red circuit build the way that I'm doing it.
Exactly, the red inserters I was talking about earlier. We see, like, for the red circuit we just saw there, we have a lot of red inserters as input and output, even though you could say, like, I only need, like, the sheep ones, the yellow ones as an input and output, and only need one of the red ones instead. But as it is, like, so fast to put down red inserters in groups, you can see it again on the left side, the red chip inserters. It's much faster to place them in groups, so we will use red inserters mostly if we have more than one single lane of input. So right now we're gonna see the blue sign set up eventually, which will enable us to unlock the bots. And you will see like a massive use of red inserters there again, just because we are not limited by resources this stage anymore, but placement time. And so what is important is something completely different. Now we see those very long directs of inserters. The layout is chosen in a way that you don't have to rotate the inserters, and you can just like drag them in a very strong long line. So your movement is really as efficient as it could be.
Yep, it's all
Also, the
about
red
sim.
circuit build is built exactly so because you'll take a copy of it later. So you'll use the
That's
bots
very
to
true.
make a blueprint of that, and then it's already built. And parts of it he made exactly so because even though it's not needed now, because then the copy is right.
Yeah.
Yep. And going back to the community of speedrunners for Factorio just for a second, I personally have had a great experience with the community. I have met in real life and Thue and other speedrunners, and I feel that we've made good friendships, and that is something that's always fun. So if you want to join the community, we are always happy for new people. We try to be supportive, and we love speedrunning, and we hope that you'd like to join us.
Oh, I think I limited that steel. Okay, that's not a big deal. It just gets put there.
Be fine, yeah. So we're approaching the third science type, which is actually the blue science, which unlocks bots eventually. We've done the oil processing there, which is a major milestone in the game. Produce plastics and red chips of it, and now we got a blue flask and also got down a tiny module production already, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where we get that?
No, the module
Missed
comes
it
later.
almost. Oh,
Just in a little
later.
bit.
Yeah, that's one of the things that differs for every runner. Some people do the modules a bit earlier, some later. So now we're really approaching that part of the run that is like a complete different part again. So if you thought the burner stage is very different because you don't need any automation, and then you actually start automation with belts and inserters in this run, now that we are like starting to approach bots, we're gonna automate the automation, and this is gonna be insane for you, because everything that you saw, as you already said here, everything that you think like, why did he exactly do a curve there or here? This looks like not insanely efficient. Most of the stuff that actually was built so far is just gonna be recycled and blueprinted again in the next stages. So be ready to be amazed.
Yep. So let's talk about blueprints, because we're getting towards there. Blueprints is, like the name sounds. You're taking a copy of what you already built. You can place it in a blueprint fashion somewhere else, and the robots will go and build that for you. There are, that's really cool, because that means that you don't have to go there. They will, and you are one person. You can have thousands of bots. In this run, I think, frankly, you have what, 250 bots or something like that?
500.
500. Okay, sorry. So the number of bots changes. Yes, a lot of helpers. Helpers make things go fast. So that's really, where the automation comes in, and what Anti was talking about automating the automation. And the speed of where things get done is faster. So here you can see he's placing blueprints, preparing it so when the bots are get built, they'll have some things to build right away. So they're not wasting time. And
Yeah,
go ahead.
keep going.
Okay. And the blueprints and when he places them is really important because you don't want to overwork the bots because then the logic will make them slower. So he's going to be placing blueprints very time specific so the bots go finish certain parts of the factory and then until before they go to the next part. Go ahead.
One funny thing, for example, in speedruns is we suffer the same problems in speedruns sometimes than casuals, but on a different scale. We all know the typical game loop of Factorio, right? You say like, oh, just let me finish this one science pack and then I'm gonna go to bed, right? And then you build and say, oh wait, now that I use the science, I don't have enough iron anymore, so let's quickly build up some more iron lane. And oh no, I built another iron lane, now I'm low on power. Okay, just quickly do some more power, right? And that's kind of like the core principle of the game. When you finish one task, you get like another to do. And yeah, speedrun progress over several iterations can be similar, because we used to only have 250 bots and said, okay, the bots are placing so slowly, we should like build 500 instead. So let's build 500 bots. And then you notice, oh yeah, okay, I have much more bots now, but yeah, I don't have enough assemblers anymore. I'm missing entities now to place them down. So, okay, for the next iteration, I'm gonna increase them all a bit and make the restock area larger. And then you notice, oh no, now that the restock area larger, I didn't have enough power for it. So, okay, in the next speedrun, I'm gonna add one more power plant earlier. So yeah, that's how the speedrun develops, and it is just the consequences of one single change are so complex. It is surprisingly, and we cannot foresee that either. It's just a thing of about iterations.
Yep. Why don't we do some more donations?
Yeah, I got plenty for you. Binder News gives $50.26, says, well, I wasn't going to donate more, but I can do 10 cents an hour. So thank you for your 502.6 hours. Appreciate it. And I've got $1,000 from Dipsy. They say, thank you so much, GDQ, for this great event, and thank you, Doctors Without Borders, for your outstanding work. You are the best. Factorio is the best game ever made. And finally, there's a run at GDQ. Woohoo. Oh, and frankly, don't forget to connect Steel later.
Oh, yes. Lots of things can go wrong with Steel. Oh my gosh, so many runs. Oh.
Yes, Steel seems simple, but it always is an issue. It's balancing it.
So now we see the first modules being used. We saw just some speed modules. Most of the entities, they have some module slots. 3 or 2, sometimes 4, depending on what type of entity it is. And we just saw like Franqly use some speed modules, and I think you also used some prop modules already earlier. Speed modules will increase the speed of an assembler even further. And they have the drawback that they're gonna consume more power instead, and you have to actually pay for the module, right? But particularly it can be very, for example, on the oil entities, you have to do so much spaghetti with the pipes. It's really helpful to get a little bit more speed of the assemblies, because then you don't have to lay down more pipes and you use space and stuff, right? And then there's productivity modules, which will give you bonus output. So for every 1 iron plate you get like the output multiplied by a certain amount. And that is, for example, very nice on green chips, which have an insane resource throughput. And we don't have to put down so much smelting instead. If we use the module there, we get a tiny bit more of output, and that can be like it may be only like 8% most of the time, right? But 8% is quite a lot if you count it down over like the 1.5 hours of this whole one. Okay, so we just unlocked bots, and we are like working on the first levels of robot speed now, so they can fly much quicker. And we already saw like Franqly put down the first blueprints right now, right? So what you see, that's ghosts. These are blueprints. You copy one part of the factory and put it down. And now those little flying things you see there, they actually gonna bring the entities there and build your stuff instead. They have a limited speed, they still have to pick up the entities they're gonna place, and they need to be in range of a roboport, which is a station where those flying machines, where the drones can charge. And now you can see why you can be so much quicker. Franqly is now gonna start copying stuff all over and over again, which you already built, and do some small changes to it maybe, and recycle in a very smart way that we can use it for other stuff instead. So yeah, what's coming up now was first a power plant, which of course we built already a power plant earlier, so not much to change. We just copy it, put it there again, and ta-da! We have 4 times the power production we had before, right?
And we need it because bots take a lot of power. And the growth is going to be taking, you know, the fast growth will need all that power to run things. A way that runs die very often is too much factory, not enough power. It's all a balancing act.
Exactly. Do you have more donations?
Yes.
We absolutely do. We've got just a lot of Factory Must Grows. We've got 25 from Nokutu that says the factory must grow. We've got Ajax the Great with $10 that says the factory must grow. And we have a question. Elegant Few gives $50 and says, so which color overalls does Factorio Mario, the industrious Mario brother, wear?
I don't know.
Zeno, that sounds a good question for you.
It looks, I think he's referencing the
player?
Player. Is that orange?
He is yellow.
Yellow.
Yes. But fear not. There is a color command, and you can have any RGB color that you want him to be.
I did not get bots boilers up by the power plant.
Uh-oh. So here's one of
really,
Go ahead.
we see a lot of stuff that Franqly puts in the chest now for the bots to place the next huge blueprint, because now he's gonna blueprint a lot of stuff around it, and the bots are gonna go there, but you want to reduce the distance the bots have to travel. So as we transferred most of the stuff manually over there with our inventory, the bots have a much lower travel rate now. And you can see Franqly's putting down a lot more robots, and now he's copying a random part of the factory.
Maybe.
And maybe it has been exactly prepared in the way it has been for the next build, which is like, I mean, what we're gonna do now is we call it the mix build. It's basically, well, everything we need for the game is left. We're gonna produce in there. It's gonna be a rainbow belt, some people call it. We're gonna take we're gonna produce a lot of different things in one single build and mix everything on one single output lane.
Yes,
And filter it afterwards.
when Anti
Be very
says
efficient.
one build, he means one long line.
Right.
Frankly, the green circuit overflow chest and red circuit has no power.
Yep, yeah, I powered it.
Oh, sorry.
Yep, no worries.
So who came up with the mix build, Anti?
I think it was. Oh well, it has.
Phoenix.
Do you see? Like, there's not a single way to say someone came up with one thing, because that's not how stuff works. I think Nephrim started with doing the mix build in one of his runs. He built like blue modules and
just a
speed
moment.
modules or productivity modules. Yeah.
Frankly, chat says there's a missing roboport power.
Oh, yes. Oh my gosh.
That's very important because with no
Good
power,
catch,
things will slow down. Thank you very much, chat.
So that would have killed the run.
Definitely.
And that we allow that in speedrunning for chat to help in that way.
Yeah, you can see the consequence of it already. We are low on power and the bots are really queuing on that roboport, being very slow, and that's one of the consequences for that. So the impact's already massive, and for any roller code attempts, you could easily say, well, this one roboport runs now dead, right? But
Thanks,
we're,
Auntie.
we're still in an extremely good time here. But that's how easily you want to die,
Definitely.
right? It's just like forgot one move report, it's done. Doesn't matter how
One
good you were
misplace.
before.
Doesn't have to be a world report. One misplace can kill a run if you don't catch it fast enough.
Where's my miner?
It was the stopping right again. I forgot.
Some people call it chat-assisted speedrun. And I think it's rare that chat can be useful in speedrunning. My impression is at least. In
We-
other games,
yes, and-
not in Factorio.
And as speedrunners, we are very, very appreciative of chat because they help us, fix problems and make it better. And we want to say thank you to our community. They're a great community.
Yes, thank you guys very much. Bots are struggling dearly. Not a lot I can do to
So
speed up
there's-
right now because I'll have to be waiting on
Yeah,
bots.
the progress of the bots is, I mean, we have like 500 bots, right? Every single of these bots places down a single entity. So the impact of the player for building something is neglectable, right? So there's points right now where the best thing is just, you cannot do anything but wait, because technically you're like a few construction bots, right? And if they have been not working, it's really hard to catch up with that.
And if you try to move forward, well, you need more bots, and then you're making the problem worse, not better. So actually, the better choice is to slow down a little bit, let them catch up.
Looks like they're low on batteries. I think I picked up batteries and didn't give them back. You know, I
There's
have
100
time.
batteries in your trash chest.
Yeah. That was the one that was way up here, right? Nope. It's this one. Okay. And this one.
A few more donations while we wait.
Yep.
Absolutely. We've got Dr. Le with $50 says, had to donate during Factorio, go Franqly. And $250 from Scorda says, glory to the machine god, hail the mighty toaster. $500 from Anonymous that just says, the factory must grow. Thank you for that. And Jaron Summers gives $250. Says, love to see Factorio in this event. I basically anti-speedrun this game, arranging everything to be aesthetically pleasing, so this is fun to watch. I'm exactly the same way.
Can't see it. Let's see.
And Dead Cell gives $100, says, frankly, so excited to see Factorio at GDQ. Best of luck on the run. That said, where are all the lights? The factory must glow.
Oh gosh.
So
in the speedrun.
lights are amazing for when you're not speedrunning, but when you're speedrunning, you don't need to see anything. And speedrunners actually are very upset when night falls because it makes things a lot harder. And because things are somewhat repetitive and happen at the same time, night always falls at the worst possible time.
Just want to explain
so
this
don't
bot
even
counter a
notice
little
light
bit.
anymore. Can you repeat?
The bot counter, the assigned tasks. Why I had to wait there before I blueprinted that.
Okay, so there is some restrictions of the game that try to make it more performant, and for casual players this is absolutely great, and it makes the game cycle over all the blueprints that are available in the game in like 600 at a time. So I think like each tick, there's like 60 ticks a second, the ring buffer will go to the next entity, and you will have a different entity in the buffer to be blueprinted. And that means that once the blueprints will not be like constructed in the order you put it down, but in the order it is currently in the internal buffer, right? So what we have to make sure is basically before you put down a new blueprint, you have to hope and wait that the other one is finished. Otherwise, if you blueprint something else too quickly, you will find the bot just not placing one single critical inserter of the other build, because they're just like not on priority right now. It has the same chance as all the other entities to be constructed. And then there's a second thing, that like the 600 entities, very often you don't want to increase the queue by over 600 entities, because then again the order gets even more random. And then you sometimes just have to wait until the queue was completely built. And you can see in the lower right corner there's a yellow empty triangle. There is in this number, like it's kind of like cycling, right? It's right now at 600 entities, and that's the amount of entities that are left to be constructed by construction bots. And
The amount of entities
yeah.
that need to be assigned to tasks. So it's like those are tasks that haven't been assigned yet. So as long as the bot has an assignment, I can give them new assignments, and the bots that already had assignments are still going to do the job that they were supposed to do. That kind of makes sense?
Yeah, it does.
So now we see the impact of the mix build we called, right? We took this blue science build, the build we had earlier, and copied it basically completely, swapped in some 2 assemblers of steel furnace here in the middle of the screen, you can see it. And this part here, you see like there's 4 different recipes here assigned all of a sudden. There's red chips, there's low density structures, there's blue chips on there, there's speed modules on there. Is there always speed modules or is there productivity modules? I don't know.
Right now, yeah.
Modules right now there. It's gonna be swapped out later. And this is all going from the same input to the same output build. So we're gonna have like 4 different entities as of now, sharing the same output build. And then we have a sort at the very end to sort it out again. So we can save a lot of entities with that. The bots are gonna place stuff faster. As you can imagine, it's very important to not place too many entities for the bots, because then the queues are gonna be longer and you're gonna have to wait for the bots longer. And yeah, there's 2 different ways to reduce the amount of entities, right? First, make your build better and share output lanes with other things. Or secondly, you can use, for example, undergrounds and replace 6 normal belts with 2 underground tiles, and therefore reduce the amount of belt you use there by 2/3. And that's also been used in the mixed belt. So if you wonder why did you use underground belt in the mixed belt, even though you don't need it, you could have just used a little belt. It is because we wanted to reduce the number of entities so the bots can place it quicker. Because we saw this big build, which we are having now. It's only one of them.
Yep,
And it's basically producing a tiny bit of everything. But we don't want a tiny bit. We want it to be huge.
Yeah.
And that's why you will see Franqly copying this build all over and over again and keep increasing production. So that's what it does right now. It's tiled in the perfect way that you can just extend it towards the bottom more and more, and we'll just keep increasing the production of the critical parts we need for the purple science pack, the yellow science pack, and the rocket part ingredients. Luckily, in any percent, you don't need any military science for the rocket and to finish the game. So even though there's 7 science packs in the game, we only require 5 of them to finish.
And not even very much of the last 2, so just kind of burst them out at the end.
Yep, and also just to quickly follow up on something that Franqly did, he went back and limited some chests even more because he wanted to save resources. He's had, at this point, he's got enough of certain resources, and he doesn't want them to be wasted producing stuff he doesn't need anymore, or stuff he doesn't need as much of. He still needs some of it, and those chests will fill up, but he doesn't need as many buffers right now.
To be fair here, launching a rocket is a goal for speedruns, but it shows the victory screen, but I don't know, nobody cares about that when they play this game casually.
Yep.
I mean,
That's not true, Anti. A lot of people.
1,000 hours before I even noticed there's a rocket you could possibly launch, right? So, there's people that have thousands of hours, they never launch a single rocket because they just don't care for it. And it's just an optional go. Like, it's like defeating the Ender Dragon in Minecraft. You can do it, but it's not what is Minecraft, what Minecraft really is about. You can always keep playing, and you set your own goals.
Mm-hmm. That is very true. Factorio is about, setting what goals you want and then optimizing for those goals and every time you set a different goal and optimize for it, you'll have a different design, which is what gives it those thousands of hours that people play it. A few more donations, please.
Absolutely. Speaking of thousands of hours, we've got Wiza with $200. They say, I can't afford to put in how many hours I've put into this game, but here's maybe a tenth of how much this $20 game has taken of my time. So that's 2,000 hours from that person. And they got in early when it was $20. And then I've got Win/, with 10 cents per hour. Sure, why not? They gave $160. Here I was thinking to, here I was sitting to think that just getting the There Is No Spoon achievement was impressive, but here we are. The factory must grow. Thank you, and your 1,600 hours, Win/.
Yes,
Although
and
There Is No Spoon.
why don't you talk about
is
There Is No
actually
Spoon?
impressive already. Don't you worry about that. It's really hard to get it at the very start, and you can always get better though. That's the fun part.
Yes, Anti, why don't you talk about There Is No Spoon? Since someone brought it up.
Oh, There's No Spoon is an achievement. There's achievements in the game, right? Like for most of them, and There's No Spoon is the one that you unlock when you launch a rocket in under 8 hours. And yeah, it is tough. It is tough. It may look like a fraction, like so much more time than we use for the speedrun here, but it's still very tough. Even though there's no major skips, but with a bit of practice, everyone can do so. And actually, our community has a small speedrunning guide. If you want to get into speedrunning any % yourself, you can Google for Nephrum's any % speedrun guide. I think it's called, right?
Mm-hmm.
Speedrunning guide, and that gives like a very easy, basic introduction on how to get into speedrun this game yourself, and it will also certainly help you with unlocking There's No Spoon if you're very interested in that.
Well, there's another category of speedrunning that we like to play sometimes. It's called 100%. Can you explain what 100% means in Factorio?
Yeah, 100% means you have to unlock all the achievements before you to win the game, and there's plenty of them. Like one of them, for example, is doing all the non-infinite research, or another one is to produce 20 million green chips, which is an insane huge amount. And yeah,
you learned
first came up
the
with
hard
this
way.
category as a meme, and I wanted to make I think I set myself like 10 hours as a goal for the very first run, and I did not plan anything for that. And I absolutely underestimated the part of producing 20 million green chips. So the 10 hours a run instead turned out to take 42 hours. But it was a very fun run. And I thought, that's so stupid, nobody else is gonna ever do that again. But it turned out people are actually that stupid, and they're also like 100%. And right now it's optimized so much they can do it in 6 hours instead.
And a lot of that optimization has not just come from the routes and the designs, but also the improved optimizations that the developers have put into the game throughout. When Anti first did that 100%, there was no way that he could do it 6 hours, even if he had the same routes as today. It wasn't possible. The game was not able to support it that fast. Things slow down with that many.
But 100% is really like not a category that's very popular. But there's like a lot of other categories. For example, there's also some duo speedrun category where you can run together with a friend if you don't want to speedrun alone. It's a pretty popular category. There's really short speedruns where you only have to unlock and track like a pro. And there's like more challenging, this is absolutely challenging, right? But there's like, we at least we put out the RNG of the biters here, but there's also the category where you just run default settings with biters and all the stuff, and that's horribly inconsistent, and you get pretty much wrecked by the biters right away. But that's also a speedrun category, and you're like looking forward something with biters. You can also find that one and play it.
There's also the multiplayer 8-player speedrun category, which is really fun, but it takes 8 people to coordinate, and when you want to get the times down there, it can get really hectic. We've done it 3 of us have played that and done it, and I can tell you from experience, it can get heated, and it can get, but it's really fun when you succeed.
So one question in chat here, how does a 100% run of Factorio last longer than 8 hours, since taking longer than 8 hours to disable There's No Spoon? Well, you don't have to finish with There's No Spoon. For example, there's like achievements that are contradictory, right? For example, finish the game without solar and only power your factory with solar panels away. So you basically finish the one achievement of finishing the game and then take care of the other achievements after you do so.
Yes, and also talking about the lazy achievement, Anti. How can we do that with 100%?
Keep going.
The lazy bee achievement. I don't want to say the full word, but there's you can't craft. How does that work with 100%?
Yeah, you have to produce everything in assemblies, right?
Until you launch a rocket. You can you have to do all that until you launch a rocket. Once you launch the rocket, you gain that achievement, and then you can start handcrafting again.
Okay, let's focus on the run a bit more again. So what we saw now is we have like extended the mix build more and buffered up on those ingredients we need for the rocket and the yellow and purple sign, which is actually coming right up now. So we see like the first part of the yellow and purple sign is there, and now we're gonna use the blueprints again and indefinitely expand it and make much. And that's the power of bots here. You see like how freaking quickly you can expand here. Also with the labs, we do like some random gaps in between there where we can fit some beacons later, so just fit up speed more. And now we just copy it again and take use of those bots. It's so powerful. It is, and everything you built before, right? It is done in a certain way so you can copy it most of the time.
Yeah, and we are entering the late game part of the run. We have bots running everywhere, building. We're just finishing the last 2 sciences, and again, there's not much of them. We're creating more power for the final stretch, but soon it'll be building the resources for the rocket itself.
Can perfectly see the preparation. You just saw the power plant being blueprinted, and did you see like how the pumps, they're flawlessly already, so they connect to other water? Well, we specifically built the first power plant in a way that the pump was in a position that you could copy it here later, and you don't have to replace the pumps. And they're already in the position where he needs them to be later at this point when he copies it right now. So that's the small things that you don't really notice. Why was there a pump like 2 pixels further away on the top when we built it at the very beginning? Well, it is because he copies it now.
And we see him canceling more things, so he's cutting them out so they don't use resources again. We want to focus the resources towards what's needed now, not stuff that's not needed. Also, he is using circuitry now for the first time in the run. Andy, do you want to explain why we use circuitry in this final part?
I don't think I will explain it now because I will do it once he sets it up.
Oh, okay. So we'll get to that in a second. But he's preparing for that.
Right, we are doing the last researches now. All science is unlocked. Now basically it's about like to increase in production, but specifically about like setting up the final rocket parts. So LDS you also need for the rocket, but we also use for the yellow science packs. So that we already got makes us 2 rocket parts to be left. So one of the next things that is going to be set up is rocket control units, and after that some rocket fuel.
Other way around, but yeah.
But first more mixed. And we're gonna come up for that like soon. But yeah, we need some additional coal and revert the side here. Luckily there's a lot of quality of life features in this game. For example, did you see how you just dragged over with a normal belt over an underground belt? Well, that will make this underground belt rotate also, even though you don't hold an underground belt yourself. So that's the level of quality of life we have in this game. It's really amazing and makes stuff like that possible. which is actually absolutely not obvious to most people. And you didn't even notice that happened, most likely.
It'd be a hard one. To
Yeah,
know.
a few more
so-
donations.
Did I hear a call for more donations?
Yes, please.
Sure, I think Daniel captures the mood of a lot of people here. I looked away for about a minute, and then when I looked back, the factory grew huge. Now I understand. The factory must grow. And thank you for your donation, Daniel. A Goose gives $500. Says, the marble with a screaming man inside must grow. And Klizix gives $30. When you take off in your spaceship, please wave at me. I'll still be manually mining my first copper. Amazing Factorio run.
So what
Thank
we
you
just
very
saw there is Franqly did take the belt that shares the purple and the yellow signs and did loop it back into the beginning. That is to assure better science distribution. If you like consume science at a faster rate than you produce it, you may stock up some science at the very end of the belt, and you don't want it because then the first labs may not have any science to grab. So for the very costly sciences, which is purple and yellow, you want to loop it back so all apps have even distribution for that. Now he's setting up a small beacon factory. Beacons are entities that will enable to apply the effects of modules to other assemblers nearby, and it will also make labs faster, for example, depending on what you put in. So if you put in speed modules, it's just a normal way to put into beacons, you can speed up all the modules around it. And we do that for the labs because it's very important that the labs are as quick as possible towards the end of the run. That is not so much because we want the labs the researchers to be faster. I mean, we could also build more research labs for that, right? But in the end, we count the science, right? So we only have like 50 science left at the end when the last research finishes. And that means that only 25 of those labs will be working. So to speed up those very last labs as much as possible, we built some additional beacons to speed up those last working labs so the end of the research goes as quickly as possible. And then we're gonna recycle those beacons we use there and build and speed up the rocket silo for the final rocket construction.
And now here's the messy
So
build.
what we see now is the use of combinators in the speedrun. You may think, why would you want to use combinators in the speedrun? It's extremely difficult to set up, but if you ever play Factorio, you will notice that there is a small internal buffer for the inputs materials. For example, if you want to build RCUs, which we do right here, they're gonna require one speed module and one blue ship to be built. So what will happen though, if the assembler starts working, it will still buffer 2 blue ships and 2 speed modules internally into the machine for the next cycle to start. So we don't want that, because then if you buffer up like 2 ingredients internally in every buffer, that means at the end it's still gonna take like 1.5 minutes to run off these buffers, and some other assemblers down the line may not even work. So the circuitry will prevent that empty buffer to be, that internal buffer to be filled. Each assembler will only grab 1 blue ship and 1 speed module and not fill up the internal buffer until it finishes its cycle, and only start grabbing up then again. And another thing we do here is we don't use belt steer for the input, but we use inserters. Why do we do that? It's because this is a final ingredient. Everything is limited on RCUs at the end. So the final main time is going to be determined by this build. And inserters are faster than belt. And the throughput of the ingredients is very low. So inserters can keep up with the throughput of the ingredients you need, and they're going to be faster than belt. So you reduce the final delay of the final ingredients, and that's very helpful. So that's why this final RCU setup is so insanely complicated. And as always, this has been a development of the community over several years, over several steps, right? First of all, we came up with the circuitry in a very complicated way. Then someone else came up with improving the circuitry conditions. And then someone else said, oh, it may be a good idea to have the ingredients on the belt loop. And then someone else come up again and says, oh, why even use a belt? Let's just do like inserters as an input and reduce the input latency. And that's how all those builds here like get developed.
I'm short 8.
Also the mixed build earlier. That stuff does not get developed by one person. It's one person that gets the idea, okay, let's do a mixed build. Let's build like modules and blue chips in a single build. And then another person is coming and sees like, oh, let's add like low density structures there as well. And then comes another person and says, oh, can't we like recycle the blue science build for that? And blueprint it and put it there and increase the efficiency of that? Yeah, that's how it goes, right? Everyone takes ideas from another person and has new ideas, develops better ideas, and changes the matter. And that's why this community is so awesome. This is more like a group effort of the planning stage, right? Even though the final world records all depend on the execution, there's dozens of people that have been making this design possible and have their influence found in this game and in the speedrun strategies.
I forgot prod 2, so hopefully that won't be a problem here.
So there's different levels of modules. So as I said, like the productivity modules are gonna give more output for each input. And we usually mostly use the level 1 ingredient modules. They are very cheap and they only increase the output a tiny bit. But there's also level 2 and level 3 modules which are really costly and only worth in casual play, not in speedruns. But for one thing, that is the rocket silo. You can put 4 modules in the rocket silo and you're gonna need 100 rocket parts to launch the rocket. But with the productivity modules, you can increase the output by 40% and instead you only need 72 rocket parts to be really crafted and then get the 100 of the bonus production. So that's why we want to produce exactly 4 level 3 speed modules for the rocket silo. And as we only need 4, we just hand feed it, no need to automate it, and that's what Franqly currently just does right now.
The normal technique here would be each of these 5 machines would produce 4, and then they wouldn't take any more ingredients to produce any more. And so you'd get exactly 20, which is what you need for 4 prod 3s. I messed that up. There's not enough prods coming in now because I switched them all to speeds. So I kind of had to hand feed some. Guess I'll come back to that later.
Luckily, that is not a run-ruining mistake.
No, not really.
So this one is still an amazing pace.
Yes, it is.
I'll say, even though we had that mistake with the tower earlier.
We're gonna feed those redstone
It's
thing.
been pretty much the only mistake, and still, that is really, really good.
That's
So
another mistake. Produce those bits. Steel's gonna be an issue. Like kind of stalling here because I'm forgetting what to do at this point. It's kind of really open-ended this late game, so it's hard to always know what to be doing.
Blue science seems to be bottlenecking right now. Is that usually that way? I think not. Right?
Nope.
Let's do
I didn't
donations.
speed modded it enough, I guess.
So maybe you can speed module it.
I mean, it's not gonna make much of a difference, these 4, but let's just go get some more. Don't want that to be the bottleneck at the end.
Sushi belts in the speedrun, I love it. Yeah, it is actually efficient, right? If you can share one belt for multiple ingredients, that's gonna be efficient.
Let's do a few more donations while we're figuring
Absolutely.
this out.
I'm just staring, watching. This is just so fascinating to me. We've got Lucifer Senpai gives $150. They say, I have at least 15K hours in this game and still love it to this day. Started around mid-2013 with Factorio. And hey, Anti.
Hello.
And Bahamut75 gives $50, says, total Factorio noob with only 200 hours, but love the game and loving this run. And I got a 250 anonymous donation that says the factory must grow. We're doing the best we can. It's growing.
It is growing.
So there's not much you can do at this stage anymore but wait, because your production is that large. Whatever you add in the last 10 minutes or whatever it is, it's gonna be extremely insignificant. So we really take a look at very tiny things. Like, for example, you see, actually, now we take care or use of red belts. And this is kind of a joke, right? Because usually you use red belts to have a higher belt speed and increase the throughput. But we use it on belts only. They are not throughput limited, but we only do it for the latency delay at the very end. So as red belt is also twice as fast, it will...
Concrete.
Okay, go ahead.
Concrete. Here we go.
As red belt is twice as fast, it will also like transport the entities twice as fast to the rocket silo, which defines the final time. So there's a lot of stuff being upgraded to red belt, only to reduce the latency, not to increase the throughput.
So now we can see that Franqly is gathering his rocket parts. You know, he gathers some engines. He's making concrete for the silo. This is we're very much into the late game, making the ingredients for the silo. Not the rocket parts are already being produced. This is just building.
We're on the final research right now. It's the rocket silo. It takes 1,000 of each of the sciences here. A little bit less due to the prod mods in the labs, but yeah, it's a lot of science. Some more donations?
And you
Time
can
for
see
some more donations? Yeah.
Yes.
We're getting requests in the chat to zoom out and see the whole thing after the rocket is launched, because it's quite an impressive feat what you've done here so far. We've got Steve. They donate $250. He says, a speedrun of a building game? Wow. That's, I think, how I feel too. Ragmop gives $25, says, hats off to the whole Factorio speedrunning community. This is already an outstanding game, but you guys take it to perfection. Absolutely agree. Watching it live, figure out what's wrong here is just so cool.
This game is actually very technical in the execution. It's all the mouse movement, it has to be done very fast, it has to be very precise. I mean, you can get impressed by Counter-Strike players for finding their opponent extremely quickly and aim there, but in Factorio it's basically happening every second, because every second inserter you have to put down, it counts like as a headshot, right? It has absolute insane precision here.
And there's a lot of multitasking. You gotta be thinking. You gotta be doing one thing, thinking about the next thing. And sometimes if you make a mistake, you gotta try to figure it out and fix it on the fly while you're doing all those two things at the same time. So, for example, Franqly noticed that he was low on steel, so he just decided to add more steel production at this late stage of the game. He normally probably doesn't do it, but that was an adjustment to this particular run, how it went.
I often do it, but I shouldn't have to.
Yes. Steel is one of those finicky things. It comes up over and over.
You can keep some more donations right now. It's a good place because we don't have much to do.
Absolutely. We got Aoni with $10. They say the factory must grow, the donations must grow. Happy to donate during one of my favorite games that has eaten up so much of my time. Thank you so much for your donation. Tukar gives $100, says good luck to Franqly. Here's $3 per hour I've played. Keep growing that factory. And then I've got an anonymous $500 donation, donating a quarter for every hour of this amazing game played. Thanks to GDQ for finally showcasing Factorio. And thank you for your donations.
So what we see right now is Franqly is getting rid of most of his inventory because the rocket silo is gonna be beaconed heavily by 20 beacons, I think, and it's gonna crop extremely quickly. So inserters will not keep up with that. So what we do instead is like we take the rocket parts into our inventory and feed it manually to decrease that delay. And so now he tries to only find the stuff he wants to use to craft the rocket silo itself and not have much other stuff in his inventory. And once he crafts the silo, his inventory is basically empty and he can feed all the rocket parts, which are hopefully gonna be there. But as soon as I saw it, it looks pretty good. LDS are plentiful. RCU looks like pretty much done as well, right?
It's It's a little low, but should be pretty close.
This is where it all comes together, right? If you did a mistake earlier, there's often only that moment right now where you actually notice it, that you only have produced half of the rocket parts you actually require. All the mistakes, they're gonna reflect at this point right now when you finish the research and want to build it. And if you actually just can launch a rocket right away, you did an extremely good job.
Yes. Launching the rocket is going to be very quick once the research is done. So he has the rocket silo being built in that assembler, and he's using the bots to move all those beacons from the labs right here to the rocket silo.
So is this gonna be close to world record?
This is gonna be extremely close indeed.
I don't actually like the timing from you put down the silo, if everything's ready.
It takes exactly 1 minute to launch a rocket once you put down the silo, right, I think. And we kind of put down the silo 1 minute before the world record time. So
Gonna be close.
if the ingredients are all there,
Yes.
this could be extremely close. Just for reference, the world record right now is 129.43.
That looks like a little low on RCU.
Little on RCU. Too bad.
Oh, and rocket fuel.
But what
Oh,
a
no,
great
rocket fuel,
run.
never mind. LDS? LDS is a little low too.
Celsius.
But yeah, definitely RCUs.
Well, I doubt. I think it's a power mistake you had earlier. That's, as I said, all the mistakes are gonna come together now. If you really have all the ingredients at that point, then you did perfectly. So
can't
there was a
work
tiny
now.
mistake or two. So that's the consequences of it. You lose a tiny bit of time here.
And we're at 91% for the rocket. 92. You can see it in the green, the big green bar.
Yeah,
In
we
the
just
middle.
passed the world record time.
Ah, dang.
But what an amazing run for a single attempt.
Yeah.
And at a marathon, this is amazing.
Yeah. It's a really, really good, really good job, Franqly.
Thanks, guys. You did a good job too carrying the commentary.
There we go, last bit. Now we see why everything's red belted, because those last parts, they come up as the red belt. And here we go, rocket launching. Congratulations, what a great one.
Good job,
Thanks,
Franqly.
guys. And thanks to GDQ for having me this year. This was an amazing opportunity. I really appreciate the chance to
Time is gonna be
showcase
when
this
the
game.
victory screen comes up.
Give the time in a second. And after the time comes up, obviously, I'm sure we can show the factory and get more donations in. There
Time.
it goes.
Time.
Wow. Less than a minute from the world record. Or, sorry, a little over a minute from the world record pace, which Franqly has.
Well done.
Donations, please?
Yeah, absolutely. What a great run. Congratulations again. We had Tadley
Can put-
Ghostal with $50. Said, had to donate during my favorite game. This game is a time machine. You start playing at 5 after work on a Friday, and then just get a little more iron plates, and it's 10 on the next day.
Can go in editor mode to show off the factory.
And if you all had any shout-outs or anything you wanted to do, you're welcome to.
What? Backspace?
Editor.
Sure, we're a lot of players here in the Factorio SB1 community. We have over 100
Like,
submissions and any percent on the leaderboards, and there's times on the leaderboard from like 1:30 to
Editor.
9 hours basically. So there's a slot for every one of you. So if you feel like you could not do that, you can. You just need a lot of practice and you can work up your leaderboards single bit by single bit. It's a lot of fun.
it's like, how do you zoom out without going into map mode?
I want to thank Kella for letting me use her computer while I'm doing this commentary. I am not home, but a good friend of mine let me use their computer. Thank you very much.
I want to thank my wonderful wife for being here with me today and supporting me through this. And all the rest of my family. All right, I think that's it from us.
Yeah.
Yeah, congratulations once again. Amazing one.
And obviously, thank you for the Factorio devs and the great GDQ community. We were very happy to be here today.
Wow, what an awesome rocket launch. Just for context, he did that in about an hour and 20 minutes, an hour 30 minutes. I did that in about 40 or 50, maybe 60 hours. So what you're seeing on display is just a real awesome understanding of the game and how to really optimize everything. What a cool community for doing that and putting that run together for us. Had a lot of love coming in, a lot of people telling us how many hours they've spent on it. It's some great camaraderie together. I had a donation from Chaotic Echo with $25. Says, the mathematical complexity that goes into a run of this game is blowing my mind. Amazing that it doesn't blow the runners remembering the layout of the factory that they need to make. Go, go. The factory must grow. Thank you for that donation. I totally agree. If you don't know it, you can have blueprints and lay everything out for you, but he's doing that all from his head and then copying and pasting later. It's just fantastic. And then I had a $50 donation from KC McG. Just says, had to donate during my favorite game. Great to see Factorio at a GDQ. Thank you for your donation. And thank you to everybody for sticking around for that run. What an awesome run. I was honored to be able to cast during it. So much fun. We're going to take a little break. We will be right back. Welcome back to Summer Games Done Quick 2021 online. I am THEKyleThomas. So great to be here. Still in awe of that rocket launch. Got some donations here to read for you. Got Victor Prime with $50 says, who needs sleep when speed runs fuel me? No bonus incentive unmet. Let's get my finished. Love you, Twitch chat. I love you too, Twitch chat. I've got James of Time with $25 says, Celeste is a masterpiece and I can't wait to see this custom maps run. Just a quick check-in on that. We're at 21,460 out of 49,000, so make sure you're growing those donations, getting those coming in for such an awesome incentive. And right now, we're going to take you over for a little chat with JohannVonVorst talking about Black Mesa with Spikevegeta.
Thank you very much, the THEKyleThomas for kicking it over. Again, guys, what's up? I am Spikevegeta here with an interview talking a little bit about Black Mesa with JohannVonVorst. And I just want to give a shout out to everybody that I have been interviewing this week, looking super dapper. Johan, how you doing, my man?
I'm doing great. Thank you. How are you?
I'm doing great. Yeah, been excited in a super exciting week. Just shot past $1 million last night. And now we're getting into some of my favorite speedruns to watch in the community. That is right, Half-Life runs. Now, everybody watching at home might be thinking like, oh, Black Mesa, that doesn't have Half-Life in the title. The origin of this game is that it just officially got its release last year, its first official release from Valve. But yeah, a fan project to take Half-Life and put it into the Source engine, and it is a gorgeous game to watch. Now, Johan, I do want to ask you, was this your introduction to Half-Life, the Source engine, everything, or did you grow up with a lot of Portal games and whatnot?
So I played a little bit of Source games like early on. I think I got Portal 2 when it first came out, and I had like the orange box on Xbox and played like Half-Life 2 once.
For sure.
But that was sort of the extent of it. Sort of like, so for a lot of the previous years, I entered a lot of like Smash for Wii U and Smash Ultimate tournaments. And especially with the last year with COVID, where we couldn't really host offline events anymore, and the online to that game being a little bit questionable.
Say the least, yeah.
Yeah, to say the least. It wasn't very fun, so I started looking for other things to do. And I definitely enjoyed the like Half-Life 2 when I played it for the first time, so I went and revisited it. And then a friend of mine actually recommended me. It's like, hey, you really like Half-Life. You should play Black Mesa. I'm like, oh yeah, I'll give it a shot. And I played that game once. 2 months later, I played that game again. A couple months later, I played that game again. And at that point, like, okay, I'm gonna learn how to speedrun this game just so like I could like feel a little bit better about myself playing this game like once a month. And so yeah, that was definitely then my introduction to speedrunning. Black Mesa is such like it's probably one of the most immersive games I've like ever played, and the soundtrack is great. Everything about the presentation is fantastic. I just love that game, dude.
Yeah, game looks absolutely gorgeous. Got to watch your PB this morning. Super, super cool run. Yeah, make sure you guys stick around after this timeline run. Johan will be taking it on. And I do want to ask you, going and doing research for this run, I looked at your speedrun.com profile page, and usually you got runners. They got a whole mess, a whole laundry list of games they've worked on. Yours is pretty brief. Black Mesa, world record holder. Generally, I am told Source games and, a lot of these like bunny hop intensive games, generally not people's first foray into speedrunning. Very, very difficult. What was it about this game that said, this is where I want to start? And how was your journey kind of getting into this run?
So just to start, I definitely have to give a huge shout out to one of our longtime community members. As far as I know, he's pretty much the OG, the Kovic. He'll be on the couch with us for the run. He made a video. I was like looking around. I was like, yeah, this game's kind of cool. I wonder what the speedrun looks like. And I was looking around for like any sort of like marathon runs or whatnot, or someone just explaining what the heck is happening in like Black Mesa speedruns. And he made a Black Mesa explain video back in like April last year, I believe. And that's sort of really like, that's where I figured out I was like, okay, I can start messing around with some of these things casually. As far as like the difficulty of Black Mesa goes, a lot of Half-Life games, especially like Gold Source games like Half-Life 1 or whatnot, Opposing Force, have been out for a very long time. Half-Life 2 has also been out since like 2006. I think the new engine is like 2008 or something like that. And so those games have been optimized so much. Yeah. Half-Life 2 like has definitely gotten to the point recently where like you have to be concerned about how fast you're going around corners. Black Mesa, especially Black Mesa has been in development for a long time, but the latter half of the game has only been like out for like 2 years. So it's much less optimized, which means that since the competition is just we don't really know how a lot of things work and whatnot, and don't always have the most efficient routes. Since the competition is a little less knowledgeable, I don't have to be as knowledgeable, I guess, to catch up. And so a lot of it is much more like, rather than like super like competitive, like beating each other by a few seconds, it's more like a group science project. We're just like, how fast can we do it? And then so everybody's contributing, even people that like haven't done a full game run in like months, still like huge impacts on like that run. And then it's pretty much a lot of times it comes down to just who's willing to do it, because it is a long, grueling run. And while it looks like a lot of movement, a lot of the run ends up just being, have you mastered like all the little funny gimmicks and quirks of the Source engine? And I think that's what really set me up there, especially for the later game. A lot of people don't really like Zen as much because the gameplay significantly differs from the early game. So a lot of people get into the speedrunning for the like movement in the early game. But taking Zen specifically and like optimizing it a bunch, especially in Interloper, that level used to take like upwards of 12 minutes, and now the world record is like 8 minutes and 9 seconds. It's just like those
Wow.
sorts of like that's pretty much how like Black Mesa speedrunning works. It's just kind of like you find something and then you just got to be willing to do it.
That's actually one of my favorite analogies I've ever heard to describe the speedrunning community. That is like, there is definitely an element of competitiveness, but it's like a group science project in reality, where at some point everyone's just got to get in a Discord call and just say, how the heck does this game work? What are, like you say, all the little quirks? It's not necessarily what's on the surface that's difficult. It's understanding all the little minute details of moving around. That's super, super cool. Now, I do want to ask you, you talked a little bit about this. I actually don't know what it is yet, so I'm excited to hear it as well. You talked about there's a certain aspect or part of the run that you are most nervous for going into this. What would that be?
So, if you've never played Black Mesa before, I would definitely encourage it. Specifically, the biggest difference between Black Mesa and Half-Life is the Zen levels. Zen is so pretty. It's so pretty, and there's fantastic music and everything. Compared to the later level, to the earlier levels in the game, the maps are like much wider open. And we also get a lot of explosives for explosive boosting. And so basically, we just fly through almost every map in all the Zen levels. And so I really, really, really want to nail the very first boost, because it's just such a cool moment. And like it's not anything particularly hard. It's not as consistent as I would like it to be, because there's a little bit of like strafing you have to do in very specific ways and jumping off some weird stuff. But I'm hoping, just because like it's gonna be a great moment. It's just gonna look so cool. There's far and away more difficult things in the run, but that one in particular, I'm just like, I gotta hit this first try just for the sake of entertainment.
Dude, that's like half of it getting into speedrunning. It's like, like there's the community, sure, raise a bunch of money for charities. I just want to look cool sometimes, man.
We have this joke in the Black Mesa community is Kovic approved strats. So Kovic very much insists that if your trick couldn't be done by a monkey, you shouldn't go for it. I am very much of the opposite. Even if it saves no time, if it looks sick, you gotta work it in somehow.
Oh, you are my kind of speedrunner. Let's go, dude.
Yeah, so I've definitely lost a lot of runs going for some really dumb stuff. Specifically, one part of my route and residue processing, I go for like what's called a prop clip, which is a little less movement intensive than just like it's a little less like visually exciting because there's not as much movement going on. But I specifically do that because like there's this one jump you can do in there where you jump off, like here's like a railing of a fence and you run over and then jump off the railing, and like that tiny little space of ground to jump off of is so small, but it looks so clean when you get it. And I always go for it, and I lose like 15 seconds there just because I keep like, I gotta make this work.
I'm gonna tell you, man, I'm gonna tell you, that is the kind of stuff that the audience here loves. They love the people's champ coming in here, about to bring you all the swag for the Black Mesa speed run. Now, Johan, before I let you go, I do want to ask you, we got to nerd out a little bit. We got to talk about like each of our like favorite speed runs. We nerded out about a lot of stuff. You had brought up stuff like Half-Life 2, and I agree, one of the top 3 speed runs of all time. Do you have any future projects? Are you going to keep grinding down Black Mesa, or what is speedrun number 2 potentially going to look like?
So funny story here, actually. It's like, okay, I've spent the last year playing a bunch of Black Mesa. And so I'm like, okay, my goal is A, put on a good show at GDQ, and B, hit sub 110 in Black Mesa. Because like at the point when I got into speedrunning Black Mesa, I think the world record was like a 122. And so we brought it down so much, and 110 is just like a nice round number. So I'm like, I'm gonna push it below this. I got that while practicing 2 days ago. So this might be it. So I don't know. There's definitely still a lot to do in that game, and I'm definitely not gonna like set it down completely. It's still just a great time, and the folks who run are amazing. But recently, I've started dabbling a little bit with F-Zero GX, just because that game looks so cool.
Woo!
And I also promised Wayzone in his chat at one point. Wayzone Half-Life 2 runner, I think he was on here like 2 or 3 years ago. He said, "Hey, when are you running Half-Life 2?" I'm like, as soon as I hit sub 110, I'll give Half-Life 2 a shot. So I might have to get around to that.
All right. About to say, I just got to see your PB. You were like, oh, sub 110. I was like, I think I saw 109 earlier by this guy. So that's pretty sick. Congrats on that. By 1 second. I know it was just under the bar. Might be going for the retirement run. But chat, you at home, if you want to get into Black Mesa speedrunning as well, join that group science project. Maybe you can bring him back. But I do look for, what category do you think you would run in F-Zero GX? Story mode, maybe, or?
I am very much not a fan of controllers in general. Just like my hands are fine, but they're just taxing to use on your hands, right? And like a lot of people have had issues with them. And so Definitely not too interested in the snaking category just because that's a lot of buttons. Max speed looks a little bit easier on the hands, and also just from a spectator standpoint, looks a little bit more like the normal game.
Yeah.
I've just been dabbling in. I don't know how hard I really want to commit because it's also really hard, and I don't know how much time I'll have coming up in the future, but it's just so cool. So we'll see.
I have beaten
I think all
games
of
like
it's great.
Battletoads, Super Ghouls and Ghosts, and Ninja Gaiden, and F-Zero GX is 10 times harder than any of those games on the easiest difficulty. So looking forward to your runs of that. Yeah.
Thank you.
But let's go ahead and kick it back up to the front, everyone. We got our timeline run. You all been waiting patiently for it. And after that, jumping into some Half-Life runs, kicking it off with Black Mesa by JohannVonVorst. Best of luck, my friend. And we'll see y'all up at the front. Bye-bye.
Hello and welcome back to SGDQ 2021. How are we feeling, chat? Are we feeling cute? I bet you are. You're always cute. I've got a bunch of donations coming here. I'm going to read a couple for you. We've got $50 from Axel. Says, imagine a timeline without timeline. Then we wouldn't get to experience this run. I'm not going to do it, Axel. Why put myself through that emotional distress? And I've got here's a little warmth for your Friday. Buttercup gives $20. Says, I would love you to read this message if you can. I am donating in honor of my husband, whose birthday is Sunday. I love you, Hev, a.k.a. Chris. You're my favorite. Oh, Buttercup. That was so sweet. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Paranoodle gives $50. Says, shout-outs to everyone participating in this event. And, of course, the marble with the screaming man inside. Less than 3. There's been a lot of round-shaped things that have been very interesting this SGDQ. We got watermelons. We got, Mr. Golfy. We got marbles with screaming men inside. A screaming man inside, excuse me. Oh, if there were more than one? Ooh. I got $100 from a tea tree. Oh, a tea tree donated. Says, hey, you cute chat. Thanks so much for welcoming me as part of this amazing event. Such a blast to be able to host for you again, and I'll be back anytime you'll have me. Be wonderful to each other and to yourselves. I love you all. GDQ Heart. Thank you so much, Tree.